That uptight bitch doesn't even know I'm draining her accounts. Once we're married tomorrow, the old man's fortune is mine too. I froze behind the oak barrel in the wine cellar of Meadowbrook Vineyard. Those words, spoken in my future son-in-law's voice, cut through me like a knife. My hand trembled as I gripped my phone, the recording app already running. Thank God I'd followed my instincts and arrived early to the rehearsal dinner. You're sure the transfers won't be traced? Another male voice, unfamiliar. Please. My fiancé's a lawyer, but she's too busy being in love to check her own accounts. I've been moving 50,000 here, 75,000 there for the past 6 months. By the time she realizes, we'll be married, and it'll be community property anyway. And her father? That senile old judge doesn't know his own name anymore. I pressed myself against the cold stone wall, my heart pounding so hard I was afraid they'd hear it. Senile? I'd just won a complex case as an arbitrator last month, but that wasn't what mattered right now. What mattered was that Marcus Chen was stealing from my daughter Sarah, and I'd just stumbled onto his confession. What about the prenup? The other voice asked. Marcus laughed, a sound I'd heard 100 times at family dinners, always thinking it was genuine warmth. Now it sounded like nails on a chalkboard. There isn't one. I convinced her it showed a lack of trust. She actually cried and said she loved that I believed in us. These educated women are the easiest marks. They think they're so smart, they never see it coming. I had to get out of there before they discovered me. Moving slowly, I backed toward the cellar stairs, my leather shoes silent on the stone floor. Every nerve in my body screamed to confront him right then, but 40 years of legal experience had taught me something crucial. Emotion loses cases. Evidence wins them. The California sunset painted the vineyard in gold as I emerged from the cellar. Guests were starting to arrive for the rehearsal dinner, their laughter and chatter floating across the manicured lawn. I spotted Sarah near the entrance, radiant in a cream sundress, greeting her bridesmaids. My daughter, my brilliant, kind, beautiful daughter who'd graduated top of her class at Stanford Law, who volunteered at women's shelters, who still called me every Sunday without fail. And she was about to marry a monster. "Dad!" Sarah waved, her face lighting up. "You're here early. Come meet Marcus's groomsmen." I forced my face into what I hoped was a smile, and walked over, my mind racing. Marcus stood beside her, his arm around her waist, looking every inch the successful investment banker in his tailored navy suit. Handsome, charming, with that practiced smile that had fooled everyone, including me. "James," Marcus extended his hand, his grip firm and confident. "Early as always. Sarah says you were the most punctual judge in Northern California." "Old habits," I managed, shaking his hand while fighting the urge to break every finger. Up close, I studied his face, looking for signs I'd missed. How had I not seen it? But predators like him were good at hiding. They had to be. "Your father looks pale," Marcus said to Sarah, his voice dripping with false concern. "Are you feeling all right, James? I know planning a wedding can be stressful at your age. At my age, the condescension was subtle, but now that I was listening for it, it was there. How many other little digs had he made that I dismissed as jokes? "I'm fine," I said. "Just need to make a phone call. Wedding coordination things. You know how it is." I walked toward the parking area, my phone already in my hand. First call, Detective Raymond Cole, who'd worked with me on dozens of cases before I retired. He answered on the second ring. "Ray, I need your help. Tonight. It's about Sarah." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my car with Ray, playing him the recording. His face darkened as Marcus's voice filled the vehicle. "That son of a bitch," Ray muttered. "James, this is serious. If he's been moving money like he claims, we're talking felony fraud, possibly identity theft, if he's been forging her signature. Can you access her bank records?" "Not without a warrant, but—" Ray paused. "Actually, if Sarah gives permission, we can request them. Have you told her?" "She won't believe me, Ray. She's in love. If I go to her now with just this recording, she'll think I'm trying to sabotage her happiness. I need more. Concrete proof she can't deny." Ray nodded slowly. "Okay. I've got a contact at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Marcus Chen, you said? Let me make some calls. In the meantime, keep him talking. See if he'll incriminate himself further. The rehearsal dinner starts in 40 minutes. Then we'd better work fast. I walked back to the venue, my mind sharper than it had been in years. Funny how the prospect of protecting your child could burn away the fog of age. I found Sarah's best friend, Lisa Martinez, setting up place cards at the reception table. Lisa, I need to talk to you, privately. She looked up, immediately sensing my tone. Mr. Morrison, what's wrong? We moved to a quiet corner near the vineyard's rose garden. Lisa had been Sarah's roommate at Stanford, her maid of honor, her closest confidant. If anyone would believe me, it was her. Has Sarah seemed stressed lately? Tired? Mentioned any financial concerns? Lisa's expression shifted, guarded. Why are you asking? Please, Lisa. This is important. She bit her lip, glancing toward where Sarah was laughing with her bridesmaids. She has been tired. She blamed it on wedding planning and work, but, Mr. Morrison, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I've been worried. She's been getting these headaches. And last month, she mentioned her savings weren't growing as fast as she expected, but Marcus told her the market was down, and she believed him. My blood ran cold. Has she given him access to her accounts? I don't know, but he handles their finances. He said it was better that way since he works in investment banking. Sarah was so busy with her caseload, she was grateful for the help. I pulled out my phone and played her the recording. Lisa's hand flew to her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Oh my God, Sarah. That bastard. I need your help, I said. I need you to keep Sarah distracted tonight while I gather evidence. Can you do that? Whatever you need, Lisa said fiercely. That girl is like my sister. If Marcus has hurt her, she didn't finish the sentence, but I saw the steel in her eyes. My phone buzzed. Ray. James, you're not going to believe this. Marcus Chen isn't even his real name. He's Marcus Holbrook. Changed it legally 5 years ago. He's got a history. 3 prior fiancés, all wealthy, all ended up with mysterious financial problems. The FBI's been watching him, but they haven't had enough evidence to make charges stick. Your recording might be the break they need. What do I do? Special Agent Victoria Hayes is en route to your location. She'll be there in 30 minutes, undercover. She wants to wire you up. See if you can get him to say more on record. James, this is bigger than just Sarah. This guy's a professional con artist. The rehearsal dinner began as the sun dipped below the hills. White lights twinkled in the trees, and waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers. I watched Marcus work the crowd, his hand possessively on Sarah's lower back, his smile never wavering. How many times had he done this before? How many other daughters had fathers who didn't catch on in time? Agent Hayes arrived dressed as a server, wiring me with a device so small I could barely feel it under my shirt. We're recording everything, she whispered. Try to engage him in conversation about finances. Ask about his business. Men like him love to brag. The dinner was a blur of courses I couldn't taste. Sarah gave a beautiful speech about love and partnership that made my heart ache. When it was my turn to speak, I stood, glass in hand, looking out at the 60 people gathered to celebrate what they thought was a joyous occasion. I've known Sarah since the day she was born, I began, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. I was there for her first word, her first day of school, her law school graduation. I taught her to believe in justice, in truth, in doing what's right, no matter the cost. Sarah beamed at me, her eyes glistening. Marcus raised his glass, that false smile plastered on his face. Which is why, I continued, I need to do what's right now. The room fell silent. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's presentation screen. Earlier today, I went down to the wine cellar to select a special bottle for tonight, and I overheard a conversation. Dad, what are you? Sarah started, but I pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room. That uptight bitch doesn't even know I'm draining her accounts. Once we're married tomorrow, the old man's fortune is mine too. Sarah's face went white. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Marcus shot to his feet, his mask finally slipping to reveal the rage underneath. That's fabricated. This is insane. There's more, I said, advancing the recording. His conversation with his accomplice played out for everyone to hear. Sarah's hand was over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Lisa was at her side immediately, holding her. "You senile old fool," Marcus snarled, abandoning all pretense. "You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" "Actually, I do." I nodded toward Agent Hayes, who was already moving with 3 other agents I hadn't noticed in the crowd. "Marcus Holbrook, also known as Marcus Chen, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and felony embezzlement." The room exploded into chaos. Marcus tried to run, but 2 agents tackled him before he made it 5 feet. He fought, screaming obscenities, as they cuffed him. "You can't prove anything. I'll sue you all. That recording is illegal." "Actually," Agent Hayes said calmly as she read him his rights, "Mr. Morrison was on private property, where he had permission to be. The recording is perfectly admissible, and thanks to your confession tonight, along with your victim's bank records, which we've been subpoenaed with her permission, we have more than enough evidence." Sarah stood frozen, staring at the man she'd almost married as he was dragged away. Then her knees buckled. I caught her before she fell, and suddenly my daughter was sobbing in my arms like she was 5 years old again. "How could I be so stupid?" she gasped between sobs. "I'm a lawyer. I'm supposed to see through people. He was stealing from me and I didn't even know. 6 months, Dad. 6 months. You're not stupid, sweetheart. You're human. You trusted someone you loved. That's not a flaw." "Over $400,000, Agent Hayes said quietly, approaching us. "That's how much he transferred out of your accounts, Miss Morrison. We'll work on recovering as much as possible, but I need to warn you, much of it has likely been moved offshore." Sarah made a strangled sound. $400,000, her mother's life insurance money, the trust fund we'd set up for her future, her own savings from years of hard work. "I want to press charges," Sarah said, her voice shaking but determined. "I want to testify. I want to make sure he never does this to anyone else." "We were hoping you'd say that," Agent Hayes replied. "With your testimony and Mr. Morrison's recording, we can put him away for a long time." The guests slowly dispersed, some offering awkward condolences, others just escaping the uncomfortable situation. Lisa stayed, of course, along with Sarah's law firm partner, Michael, who immediately offered to represent her in the criminal proceedings. That night, Sarah stayed at my house in her old bedroom. I heard her crying through the walls, the same sound she'd made when her mother died 2 years ago. I wanted to fix it, to take away her pain, but some wounds take time to heal. Around 2 in the morning, she appeared in the doorway of my study, wrapped in her mother's old robe. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed," she said quietly, "how he always insisted on handling our finances, how he got angry when I mentioned wanting to review our budget, how he pushed for a quick wedding. God, Dad, I signed a power of attorney last month so he could handle some paperwork while I was in trial. I gave him access to everything. He's a professional predator, Sarah. He's done this before. You couldn't have known." "But you knew," she said, her voice breaking. "You knew something was wrong. You always said you had a bad feeling about him, and I told you to stop being overprotective. I accused you of not wanting me to be happy. I didn't know, not for certain. I had doubts, but I could have been wrong. If I'd confronted you without evidence, you would have resented me. Our relationship might never have recovered." She was quiet for a long moment. "When did you become so wise?" "When I had a daughter to protect." She crossed the room and curled up in the chair beside mine, like she used to do as a little girl when she couldn't sleep. "Mom would have liked how you handled this. She always said you were the smartest man she knew. Your mother would have seen through him in 5 minutes. She was always better at reading people than I was. I miss her." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." The next 6 months were brutal. The trial, the depositions, the media circus when they discovered Marcus had defrauded not just Sarah, but 5 other women over the past decade. Sarah's face was plastered across news sites, and she had to relive her humiliation over and over again in court. But something happened during that time. Sarah didn't crumble. She stood in that courtroom with her head high and testified for 4 hours about how Marcus had systematically isolated her from her friends, controlled her finances, and gaslit her into doubting her own judgment. Other victims came forward, giving similar testimony. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus Holbrook was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. The judge called him a calculating predator who preys on successful women and uses their own accomplishments against them. Sarah got back about 60% of her money through asset forfeiture. The rest was gone, scattered across accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. But she didn't seem to care as much as I'd expected. Money can be earned back, she told me after the sentencing. My dignity, my ability to trust myself, those were harder to rebuild. But rebuild them she did. Sarah threw herself into her work with a new focus, specializing in financial fraud cases. She started a pro bono program helping women who'd been victims of financial abuse. She gave talks at law schools about recognizing the warning signs of financial predators. One Saturday afternoon, about 8 months after that disastrous rehearsal dinner, I was at Sarah's apartment helping her hang shelves when her doorbell rang. She opened it to find a man in his mid-30s holding a bag of groceries, looking sheepish. "I'm so sorry. I thought you were picking these up for the building cookout, but then I realized I got the apartment number wrong." "No problem," Sarah said with a laugh. "I'm actually going to that cookout. Dr. Chen, right? You're the pediatrician on the 4th floor?" "David," he said with a warm smile. "And please, I deal with enough sick kids. I don't need to be doctor when I'm off duty." They chatted for a few minutes about the building and the cookout, and I noticed how David's eyes never left Sarah's face, how genuinely interested he seemed in what she was saying, not calculating, not assessing her worth, just kind. After he left, Sarah turned to me with a bemused expression. Was he asking me out? I believe he was testing the waters. I'm not ready for that. I didn't say you were, but when you are ready, you'll know. And you'll trust your judgment again, Sarah. You will. She came and hugged me then, fierce and tight. Thank you for not giving up on me, for trusting your instincts when I wouldn't trust mine. Always, sweetheart. Always. 3 months later, Sarah went to that building cookout. She and David talked for 3 hours. When she called me the next day, I could hear the cautious hope in her voice. He wants to take me to dinner. A real date. Dad, I'm terrified. Being terrified means you're being brave. And for what it's worth, I'd like to meet him. You interrogated my last boyfriend so thoroughly he needed therapy. Well, that one was stealing from you, so I feel my concerns were justified. She laughed, really laughed, and it was the best sound I'd heard in a year. David came to my house for dinner the following Sunday. He was quiet, thoughtful, and when Sarah excused herself to take a work call, he looked at me seriously. "Mr. Morrison, I know what Sarah went through. I want you to know I'm not. I'm not looking for anything except to spend time with an incredible woman. I'm a pediatrician. I make a decent living, but I'm not wealthy. I've got student loans. I drive a 10-year-old Honda. And I think your daughter is the most remarkable person I've ever met. What do you like about her?" I asked, testing him. She listens. Really listens. Last week, I was telling her about this difficult case with a patient, and she didn't just offer solutions. She asked questions. She wanted to understand. And she's funny. Did you know she does perfect impressions of reality TV stars? She did one of some housewife at the cookout that had me crying, laughing. I smiled. Sarah had been doing impressions since she was 12. It was one of her hidden talents, something you only learned if you knew her well. She's also been through hell, I said quietly, and she's still healing. I know, which is why I'm going at whatever pace she sets. No pressure, no expectations, just being there. I decided I liked David Chen. A year after the rehearsal dinner that never led to a wedding, Sarah and I stood at her mother's grave. It had become our tradition, visiting together on the anniversary of Catherine's death. "I think Mom would have liked David," Sarah said, placing fresh flowers on the headstone. "Your mother would have loved anyone who made you happy. But yes, I think she would have especially liked him. We're taking a cooking class together, Thai cuisine. Last week we made pad Thai and set off the fire alarm in his apartment. His neighbors were not amused. Sounds serious, I teased. Maybe. Slowly. I'm not rushing into anything ever again. But Dad, I feel like myself again. The version of me I was before Marcus. Maybe even better, because I know now what I'm capable of surviving. You're one of the strongest people I know, Sarah. You always have been. She leaned her head on my shoulder, both of us, looking at Catherine's name etched in marble. You saved me, you know. If you hadn't followed your instincts that day, if you hadn't recorded him, if you hadn't been brave enough to expose him publicly, even though you knew it would hurt me, I would have married him. He would have destroyed me financially, probably emotionally, maybe worse. A father's job is to protect his children, even when they're adults, even when they think they don't need protection. I hope if I ever have kids, I can be half the parent you and Mom were. I corrected. I'm not dead yet, and I intend to embarrass you in front of David for at least another couple decades. She laughed and squeezed my hand. We walked back to the car in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from shared history and deep love. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Holbrook's parole hearing denied. He'll serve the full 15 years. Justice served. I showed Sarah the message. She read it and nodded, her expression unreadable. Good, she finally said. Not because I want revenge anymore, but because maybe those 15 years will keep him from hurting someone else's daughter. Some other woman who deserves to be loved, not victimized. That was my Sarah. Even after everything, still thinking about justice, about protecting others. Still the little girl who wanted to save the world, now with the strength and wisdom to actually do it. The sun was setting as we drove home, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, just like it had that evening at the vineyard. But this time, there was no betrayal waiting in the shadows. Just the quiet peace of a storm survived, a family intact, and a future full of possibilities. Sarah's phone rang, and I saw David's name flash on the screen. Her whole face softened as she answered. Hey, you. Yes, I'm still coming over for dinner. No, I'm not letting you cook alone after last week's pad thai incident. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up and caught me smiling. What? Nothing, I said. I'm just happy you're happy. I am, Dad. I really am. And watching her smile, knowing she'd not only survived but thrived, knowing that my instinct to protect her had been right, even when it seemed like I was risking our relationship, it was worth every difficult moment. Sometimes the hardest thing a parent can do is tell their child a truth they don't want to hear. But sometimes it's also the most important, because love isn't just supporting their choices. Sometimes love is having the courage to stand in the way of those choices when you know they're about to drive off a cliff. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. For my daughter. Always.